Thank you, Daniela. And welcome everyone. Hopefully you can see my screen, and I'll just hide that away. So I just wanted to really give you details about Bytes as a whole and the fact that we have a dedicated modern workplace team, and we're addressing those specific queries and challenges that organizations are facing at the moment. So reason for this is you perhaps don't see Bytes or haven't seen Bytes in the past as this kind of being able to provide this kind of expertise, but this really just showcases the fact we're working with a number of top tier vendors that really fulfill technologies in this space, and Dell being one of those. We're not just an entry level partner, but we're a titanium partner, which means we're one of few resellers in the country that really work with Dell at a level where we can really work together to work on a strategy with you guys. And I suppose the difference there being that if you do have a direct relationship with Dell, you don't get as much of accessibility to a number of the things that Nilesh will be taking you through today. So it's very worthwhile thinking about how we can work together on that, any projects you perhaps have working with Dell. But also, I mean, looking at the other partners we work with, you can see that we have a lot of credibility in this space. So well worth thinking about how we can address some of those challenges with you. We really are keen to look at ways in which we can address some of the challenges, and the way we see it, some of the things that our customers have been seeing as real difficulties in the last number of months has been the real disruption to business continuity and meeting those challenges. And today's webinar is going to address, I suppose, how we can really start working towards that normality and going back to where we were, and incorporating perhaps that hybrid working and that back to office approach. These are still difficulties that we still need to work around, and whether it's BYOD or reducing service desk tickets or whatever it is that perhaps is something of a concern, that is a difficulty that you're trying to meet at the moment, we're able to really address those and work with you on that basis. So certainly worth having a discussion and thinking about what we can do as a next step after this webinar. As far as we're concerned, from Bytes' point of view, we see the modern workspace as addressing these 5 key areas in the next 12 months. And really, I suppose there's a lot of food for thought around thinking about how you can meet some of those things. So in a recent survey we ran, security was a very, very top priority for a number of IT decision makers, but it's also around how they can get visibility, and that whole employee experience is something that we're seeing as a big requirement from a number of organizations as well. Bringing it all together and the whole collaboration and providing remote access and making sure they've got manageability of all the devices out there is a focus as well. So we'll see as part of this webinar, as Nilesh opens it up from Dell's point of view and what they're seeing from their customers and what they see the market is going to be demanding over the next 12 months is certainly in line with a lot of what we're seeing from the surveys that we've run and from this roadmap as well. So I'm not going to speak anymore. I'll hand over to Nilesh, and hopefully he'll be able to define how that's going to look from Dell's point of view. Nilesh, over to you.
I'll take that as a yes. Otherwise, Daniela, do tell me if that's not the case. So firstly, a very good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us on this webinar. Hopefully you can all see my screen right now. What I wanted to do was, before going into the details, I wanted to kickstart today's session off with a brief video just to help set the scene in terms of the areas that Dell Technologies is currently focusing on in terms of helping customers as they navigate through the journey of the pandemic itself.
Well, Nilesh, it doesn't seem to be coming up.
Okay, I'm trying again. Otherwise, would you mind playing the video from your side, please, Daniela?
Yeah, no worries. Bear with me.
Perfect. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So 2020 has been an unprecedented year for all businesses, requiring them to make sudden and significant changes as to how work is being carried out. For the past year, I've had the opportunity of working with many of our customers to understand and help them navigate through the challenges that businesses have faced during the pandemic. Now, I'm sure you're aware of the various different government guidelines in place aimed at helping to kickstart the economy again. And this is where Dell Technologies have been focusing our efforts, working with many of our customers, developing and executing the return to work strategies. In fact, all businesses are in the process of doing this, ranging from public transportation, local government, educational institutes, aviation, retail, all the way through to manufacturing, all focusing on how businesses can get people back to workplaces and workspaces as safely as possible. Furthermore, there's been a clear recognition that technology is acting as a key enabler to help get businesses and the economy moving again. The world looks starkly different today than it did a year ago. A few transformations have moved as quickly in the last year as the world's path to digital. But what will the future look like for businesses once the pandemic is over? Will the push to digital persist, or will it retreat? According to a report from Statista, worldwide spending on digital transformation is projected to grow from around $1.3 trillion to $2.3 trillion by 2023. Additionally, around 56% of CEOs have said that digital improvements have led to revenue growth and demonstrates the importance of having the right return to work strategies. During this webinar, we'll be talking about the trends that we're seeing in the marketplace, key aspects to be aware of, and how Dell Technologies and Bytes can support businesses as they navigate through this journey. Now, return to work does not necessarily focus just on the physical return to site. In fact, it's about redefining the workplace as a whole. focusing on the important factors of safety, security, and maximizing productivity of workers, regardless to the location that they're working from. Our personal daily routines have changed overnight due to the pandemic, but they weren't the only routines that were dramatically altered. So were our digital routines. Meetings have transitioned from conference room to conference Zoom, and entire offices have shifted to Microsoft Teams, Asana, and various other video conferencing platforms. Gym memberships have disappeared and turned into on-demand classes. Trips to the restaurants have turned into ordering from Uber Eats, and shopping has turned into curbside pickup and website browsing. Businesses have had to adjust to meet the needs of their employees and their customers' new digital behaviors. For example, customers became digital shoppers overnight, and businesses have had to provide the right e-commerce channels to provide products and services. For employees, video conferencing was widely introduced to the masses as a way of working. This was different to the prior live meetings or even the conference calls that we traditionally were used to. The pandemic has resulted in businesses altering their core operating models around the way work is being executed. In fact, hybrid remote working is now being seen as a new norm for many businesses. So what does this really mean? And are the implications clearly understood by all? So having researched this extensively, the stress and the uncertainty of the pandemic has really cast a spotlight on the evolving workplace. It's been less suited to the traditional top-down management responses that we've been used to and driven a lot more what we call employee-centric conversations as businesses pivot to remote employee models. Businesses who have done this successfully have scored well in recent attitude surveys, and you can see some of the results on the screen here. However, the one key takeaway that concerns many businesses is a high percentage of employees who would now consider a job change that permits them to continue to work from home. So clearly, we're seeing a desire in the workforce for remote working, and as a result, we're seeing a desire from the businesses to drive productivity for the remote workforce. Furthermore, we're seeing as much as 90% of respondents believe that the pandemic has removed the barriers of remote working, with almost as many firmly of the opinion that working models have changed significantly and don't see a return to the old working methods. So let's take a look at what this means for businesses. These industry reports highlight the changing trends and the fact that remote working is now becoming the new norm for many areas. Regardless to the current pandemic and its duration, we're seeing a long-term shift to remote working. Post-COVID, businesses are expected that around 40% of their workers will be remote. Now that's more than double what it was prior to the pandemic. And furthermore, around 26% of businesses are expected that a majority of their employees will no longer regularly return to an office environment. As a result, we're seeing more and more businesses reassess the real estate with a greater focus on technology and digital skills for the workforce. With hybrid remote working becoming the new norm, this has increased the need for effective collaboration tools. Research has shown that around 2/3 of employees who use fully developed collaborative workplaces see positive benefits in their productivity as a result. Now, unsurprisingly, this poses a few challenges for IT, securing data, including the IP that's generated, and most importantly, ensuring that the connection points are secure remain to be the top challenges for IT teams. Over the past year, we've seen many organizations deploy collaboration and security tools such as Teams, Zoom, multi-factor authentication. However, there's a lot more that needs to be done in order to drive productivity for the employees and help keep the businesses safe and secure. And finally, businesses have recognized the importance of focusing on the employee experience, not only to drive productivity, but also to help attract and retain the right talent. There is a greater emphasis on focusing on providing the right environment for individuals to perform their jobs and focus on the health and well-being of their employees. Our experience has shown that companies who have been most successful in managing remote working track and measure employee experience to help them tailor the training and the skills development needed to get the most out of their investment and drive productivity. So overall, businesses will need to look towards leveraging digital investments and enforce a strategic shift in a post-pandemic world. The past year has pushed the digital trends to focusing on growing market share and reducing cost to serve. They'll need to be aligned to new customer and workforce's intents that drive customer acquisition, increase customer satisfaction, and foster retention. As we move forward, businesses will need to continue to reduce the cost to serve through a new and improved digital capabilities, such as enabling self-service, automating manual work, and streamlining of efforts. Regardless as to what the future holds, one thing is for certain: the pandemic has changed the workforce's demands and expectations. Companies have risen to the challenges and adapted to meet them, and will need to continue to do so in order to help reduce operating costs, drive productivity, and help gain market share. So the past year has demonstrated the tremendous productivity and creativity opportunities that remote working can provide. However, unfortunately, there are some hidden trade-offs which will need to be understood and steps taken to help manage if remote working is deemed to be the longer-term strategy for them. While some businesses were previously skeptical of remote working, our experience has shown that the importance of capitalizing on this. Individual departments will need to address how this affects their processes, identify and implement any necessary changes to adapt to the potential of dispersed teams, including greater efforts required for fostering engaging workplaces and a sense of belonging. The view for many is that remote working offers employees with a flexible working environment, a better work-life balance, and eliminates the time to commute to and from offices. Now, this is all true. However, there are a broader set of benefits that may not have been considered. It not only helps to attract and retain talent, allowing a broader search coverage for recruiting talent, and helps to open doors for women and carers. Caring, whether for children, parents, partners, has for too long been an invisible activity that one has had to juggle against whilst juggling work commitments, and in doing so, have quite often impacted their career advancements. There are a number of areas that need to be understood with regards to the challenges that some employees will face. So, for example, are employees really set up for home working? What steps are being taken to ensure employees are able to undertake their work without impacting their health and well-being? Consider those with shared living arrangements with limited privacy. How will businesses be able to ensure sensitive information is not accessed by unauthorized individuals? And finally, how are businesses going to help balance the family commitments whilst working? I personally have had the opportunity of joining a number of CIO roundtables in 2020, and it was evident that people were seen to be working longer hours, and more people were struggling to delineate between work and home. So what steps will your business take to help manage this? As I mentioned, technology is a key enabler for remote working. However, businesses will need to be realistic on what is achievable and acceptable, as there are many hidden costs that need to be considered. To truly enable remote working, what steps are your business undertaking to help with the health and well-being of the workers? Are they being provided with not only the right laptops, but also the necessary peripherals and modern applications that enable them to work safely and efficiently? And what steps are being taken to provide that seamless experience when returning to the office? The strategy should also take into consideration the impact of when technology or the underlying infrastructure fails, and have mitigations in place for business critical scenarios. Now, according to the BBC, the UK still has around 1.9 million households with no access to the internet, and tens of millions more still reliant on basic pay-as-you-go services to make phone calls or access healthcare, education, and benefits online. So what steps are being factored within your strategy to help overcome these for your employees? So reflecting back on the disruption caused by the pandemic, and the focus on businesses now looking for ways to provide a modern IT capability that meets the workforce's expectations, the question we typically ask is, what are the key areas that businesses need to focus on? Now, in our experience, we should be thinking about this in terms of the challenges that it creates for IT, and also understanding the expectations of both the employees and the purchasing departments. So let's start with the challenges. IT departments are required to deliver new devices to users and new hires, and reconditioning devices from users that have left the organization. This has already been seen as a troublesome and lengthy manual set of processes, and it's only become even more complex to manage with staff now being remote and the inability to access the staff or the devices. It generates a lot of added complexity for IT to deal with and can lead to users having to resort to other devices to connect and collaborate with their colleagues. Recognizing that businesses have had to rapidly roll out remote working, and in some cases, without a clear strategy on how they're going to make it work, this has often resulted in individuals without a work laptop, resorting them in using their own personal PCs, tablets, or even their smartphones, which are not managed by IT departments. So poor execution of remote working impacts on the employee's ability to not only undertake their work, but also collaborate effectively with their colleagues. This generates frustration throughout the team and increases risk of losing key talent. And all of this is happening at a time when costs are high and budgets as a result of costs being high are limited. And so procurement teams are struggling to meet the needs of the businesses. So let's take a look at the other side and see what the workforces are expecting for moving forward. And broadly speaking, they're looking for a more consumer-like experience with apps and devices that fit the worker, with safe and secure access to company resources, being enabled to collaborate remotely with each other. And all of this, whilst the procurement departments themselves are looking for a more financial flexibility in how they pay for all of these different things that the businesses are demanding. So how can Dell and Bytes assist in overcoming these challenges, whilst making it easier for tools and capabilities to be consumed by the users? So whilst the pandemic has accelerated the rate of change in the market today, it's worth mentioning that Dell has been expecting and preparing for this change for some time, and have built a comprehensive approach for businesses on how they can best look to modernize their IT estate. This has been Dell's approach for a number of years, and in fact, it's this very approach that allowed Dell Technologies to be in a position to enable our global 160,000 workforce to be repositioned practically overnight to remote working, whilst at the same time seeing an increase in productivity. We've done this by helping businesses rethink IT as a persona-centric operating model, where IT is optimized for how employees need and want to work. New work styles require tailored IT applications and devices that are purposely built for their persona and how they work. We've definitely seen a shift away from that traditional one-size-fits-all type of catalog for IT services and become a lot more complex than that. Today's employees are diverse and working in new ways, in new places, and are ever connected. They need to be empowered to access the systems, the data, the applications, when and as they need it. This includes the tools and the devices that adapt to how and where people are working, providing a secure anytime access to the workforce. We also can help businesses create a consumer-grade self-service IT portal to serve as a marketplace for employees to order IT products and services that they need and get the knowledge and support that they might need in the future. We can help businesses establish tailored bundles in the portal to suit the different personas of their organization, so that end users are able to directly order the right tools for their workload. And by using our day one productivity approach, they can have they themselves can be delivered, the items can be delivered directly to their homes, simplifying the task for both the procurement and IT teams. We can help businesses deliver day one productivity through modern provisioning, leveraging industry-leading cloud collaboration tools to provide the best solutions for modern teamwork. What this means is that we can deliver a device directly to the end user, which they can use straight out of the box, and it's already managed and secured by the respective IT teams, all without anyone needing to first touch the device or do anything with it. We can also help businesses measure the user sentiment over time, which helps to understand what works well and what needs improvement. This continuous improvement loop is key to help understand, not only retain key talent, but also attract valuable new team members. And if we think about remote working, that enables businesses to be able to recruit outside of their traditional operating areas. And finally, we can help businesses move to a financial approach that's more flexible. It allows the procurement teams to have a predictable budget, which is spread over a period of time rather than having costly upfront payments. So in summary, providing a safe digital workplace is geared around helping to reestablish the way work is carried out as a whole. It's about redefining it, recognizing that there's been a shift in terms of how activities are being executed remotely and how to make best use of modern day tools to optimize it. Return to work focuses on how businesses are able to leverage new technologies to help digitize the workplace, provide flexibility for the workforce, and recognize that it's no longer a case of working from home, but working from anywhere and anytime. Businesses need to understand how productivity has been impacted during the pandemic and the fact that it provides an opportunity to do a reset and develop a new workplace strategy that recognizes the issues and the changes in the expectations of their employees, helping to identify and implement the right tools and capabilities to address them once and for all. Dell Technologies and Bytes understands that all customers are different and are at different points of the journey. And as such, we recommend starting off with an assessment-led workplace diagnostics. Between both organizations, we have a breadth of workforce transformation expertise and tried and proven methodologies and best practices. We can not only quickly understand a customer's existing estate, their challenges and priorities, but also help educate them on how the persona of the workers have evolved and develop a tailored strategy and roadmap on their behalf that realizes the value as quickly as possible, whilst at the same time focuses on the customer's priorities. This in turn will help us ascertain the key areas to focus on, both short-term, mid-term, and long-term. It could be connected platforms, which helps break down the data silos that we see in many businesses and automates tasks across applications to enable the right information to be made available to the right individuals in order for them to fulfill their jobs. Or it could be modern management, helping businesses meet the challenges of end-user device management. It equips users with a workspace that suits their role, complies with company policies, and delivers a better user experience. Or finally, it could be unified workspace, alleviating the pressures of IT departments that are currently having to fill large volumes of new business requests by helping to manage the device lifecycle on their behalf, ensuring that the right expertise is made available to the users regardless of the location of work. So I hope the insights covered here resonate and provide some ideas on the areas for consideration as you go through this journey of developing your return to work strategy. And of course, would welcome the opportunity of supporting you as you navigate through this journey. I'm now going to hand over to Daniela just to kick off a brief Q&A. I'd love to hear any questions or queries you may have, and I'll do my utmost to help answer them.
Great, thank you, Nilesh. Give me 1 second. Great, thank you so much for your presentation. Very insightful. So now we're going to dive into the Q&A. We received a couple of questions already, so I'm going to get started with those. And yeah, if anything comes to mind or you would like anything covered live on this webinar, then please do use the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. So Nilesh, this is for you. So a user said, you mentioned the government guidelines earlier. I know the Chancellor's made some changes to the capital allowances as of the 1st of April. Is this something that we as a customer can take advantage of?
So that's a great question, and interestingly enough, you know, within Dell Technologies, we received a raft of emails just at the tail end of last week from our UK General Manager. So, you know, you're absolutely right. So the Chancellor's announced a number of changes around the capital allowances, and they've called it the super deduction. And you know, for those that aren't fully aware, it's all focused around, the government helping to accelerate tax relief against purchasing of essential assets, including computers and servers. And the focus is really geared around helping to stimulate the economic growth of the UK. So, the short answer to this is, the answer is yes. The nature of what the Chancellor is trying to enforce is, trying to drive forward, leveraging technology to help kickstart the economy. And the nature of return to work is looking at the entire IT estate and how do we best optimize it. So there are benefits for many organizations, as it will allow organizations to benefit from up to around 130% of first-year capital allowance. So essentially, it will offset your taxation for your profits for the first year.
Great, thank you, Nilesh. Another question's come in. A user asked, you touched on security. What are Dell's views on security and how can we further protect our business? Okay, so and I guess the initial video that I played at the beginning of this session. So the way Dell Technologies is looking at how do we support businesses as they navigate through the pandemic and return to work. For us, it really focuses around 3 core pillars. You've got safety, which is around those individuals that need to physically go back into the office. What are those aspects that need to be factored in? There's a productivity piece, which I've talked through in this webinar. And then there is the third piece, which is trust. And now that is essentially the glue that covers both the safety and the productivity pieces. So, for us, we recognize that the cyber attacks are becoming more and more sophisticated, and the importance of not only driving productivity, especially when information is now being accessed remotely, there's a greater emphasis around security as a whole. So once again, we have a portfolio of tools and capabilities that we would actually encourage many organizations to focus on, ranging from end user endpoint device management, all the way through to network segregation, but also be very mindful that the mindset in the industry right now is it's no longer a case of if you're going to be attacked, it's more around when you're going to be attacked. So the focus is around, what are the controls and the mechanisms in place to help recover from various different cyber attacks. So we have a portfolio of capabilities within that. And the final piece is, for those that aren't familiar, Dell Technologies has a portfolio of companies, of which SecureWorks is one of our portfolio companies. So we can once again help organizations, leverage, the cyber intelligence that we have to help better secure their organizations as they move forward. Wonderful, thank you, Nilesh. We've got another question that's just popped through. Someone asks, we currently have Dell laptops and PCs. Are you still? Can you still help us, even though we've purchased them already?
Is that to me, Daniela?
I believe that might be to Peter. Might be better to answer that one, Pete.
Well, I suppose the question really comes down, Nilesh, like from your presentation, which, thank you very much for going through that. What would you suggest is the next step for anyone who's joined on today?
So for me, I guess it's twofold. So, the journey around return to work is beyond just procuring laptops. It's around looking at the tools and the way individuals are actually executing their work. So it's very much around that digitization of their workforce and taking them through that transformation journey. So there's a lot more beyond just the basic hardware. And that final slide that I shared, for us, it's very much around, we're very mindful that every single organization is very different, right? And various different investments have been undertaken up until now. So the intention here is not to start from scratch. Let's understand, what tools and capabilities the organization have, and let's work in conjunction with that and bolster those capabilities up to achieve the end goal. So for us, the focus is very much around, undertaking those assessment-led workplace diagnostics, where we can very quickly ascertain, what does the estate look like? What are those challenges? But also, understand in a lot more granular detail, what are your priorities, and what are those particular challenges that your workforces are facing, in order for us to actually help develop the right strategy that's tailored for yourselves.
Yeah, makes sense. And I suppose that for anyone who is in that position where, you've made an investment in Dell technologies already, perhaps or even if it's non-Dell technologies, you've made that investment in hardware to support what you might be doing from that device point of view. It's still worth having a look at that assessment that we've guided through there, to have a look at that analytics and see how we can perhaps find a way of working to some methodology to support whatever the challenge is that you're facing. And there's various ways, as Nilesh has highlighted, that we can certainly support that.
Okay, wonderful. Unless, do either of you have anything you'd like to cover? Or if that's everything, I think we'll wrap it up.
No, I think so. I mean, you covered an awful lot of areas, and it's a completely unpredictable future that we're seeing, Nilesh. So a lot of this is trying to advise on the basis of this is the best route forward based on a lot of unknowns. Would you agree with that? Is this the best way forward based on the fact that we just don't know what's going to happen next, but this would be the best way of handling the situation? Because you have got various options. You could just stand still and do nothing. You could put a lot of effort into a method that could be very costly and you regret down the line. So this kind of approach that we're suggesting, why would it be, would you say, in your opinion, the best approach to go with?
Not a problem. And you're absolutely right once again. So there are so many unknowns as to the challenges that organizations have had to embrace as a part of the pandemic. But having learned and assessed what's happening in the market, and it's not just in the UK, it's globally, right? There are certain trends that are clearly in place. In fact, we're seeing many organizations already going public, such as if you look at some of the advisories like PwC and Google, they've already announced the fact that they are transitioning to hybrid remote working, because they're understanding and they're recognizing the changes in the expectations of the workers. So and that's the reason why I emphasize the piece that it's highly encouraged that many organizations do capitalize on this remote hybrid working capability. But be fully aware, it's not a case of a blanket enablement for everyone. Understand the expectations of the employees, understand the departments, and try and embrace it in those types of manners. So it's trying to find the right balance where you can still optimize the way work is being carried out, but also find that flexibility in terms of ensuring that we can retain and attract the right talent. There is a clear change in the expectations of the workforce as a whole, and if organizations do nothing, they do run the risk of actually facing huge challenges in terms of retaining their workforce for the long term. So what we're trying to do here is let's understand the broader priorities and the strategy that the businesses have, and trying to weave certain aspects of remote working, because it's only going to be beneficial, but we're not expecting a full transformation across everything, but at least do pockets of it where they can embrace it, and it will actually set them up for success for the long term, in our view.
Yeah, and whatever it is that someone does, it's got to work with what they've invested in already. It's
Absolutely.
so it's important that it all glues together in some way. Okay, that's really been helpful, and I think if there is anyone who wants to take advantage of that workplace analytics that is on offer, please get in touch. But it's been very insightful. Thanks a lot for that, Nilesh.
Brilliant. Thank you both.
Yep.
Thank you both. Very, very insightful around the return to work piece that we're all discussing at the moment. Yeah, so if any of the discussion points that have been covered, if you'd like more information around any of them, please do reach out to your Bytes account manager or email infrastructure@bytes.co.uk, or you're of course always welcome to email tell me more @Bytes, and we will refer you to the right person if you're slightly unsure about who to speak to regarding your query. Well, on that note, I will let you all go and enjoy this gorgeous sunny day. Thank you so much to both presenters and you for joining. Like I said earlier on, there is a critique form at the end where you can, leave feedback regarding this webinar, as well as a request for a callback. This webinar will be made available on demand as of tomorrow, and you'll receive an email notification with the recording, so keep an eye out for that if you'd like to listen to it again. Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you everyone, have a lovely day and take care.